Welcome in, Minnesota sports fans, to another edition of Vikings on SI. Jonathan Harrison here, joined once again by Tony Liebert and Will Ragatz for another edition of our Pick'ems Friday. We're going to pick the score of this Vikings-Lions game. And boys, this is a huge one for sure. 5-0 Vikings, 4-1 Detroit Lions. Battle for supremacy of the NFC North, the NFC. This is a huge one at hand this weekend. Will, I'll start with you then, Tony. Let's get your predictions right off the bat here.
Yeah, this is, you said it. This is the biggest game of the year. I would argue maybe in the NFL. There's a Super Bowl rematch coming up this week. There's a few big games on Sunday, but you're talking about the two teams with the best point differential in the league, two teams that are top two in DVOA in the league. These are arguably the two best teams in football right now, even with the Lions losing Aiden Hutchinson. But I've said it the last few weeks. I know we're coming off a bye, but going back during this 5-0 streak, and I'm just going to keep picking the Vikings until I kind of get a reason not to. And yes, facing the Lions gives me some pause, a team that's put up 89 points, nearly 45 a game the last two outings. But I just think this Vikings team, having the extra week to prepare, getting a little bit healthier, hopefully. They're not going to have Blake Cashman, but it looks like Aaron Jones has a good chance to play. I just think they're going to come prepared for this game. And Brian Flores' defense, as much as they might give up some yards and some points to the Lions, because the Lions have one of the best offenses in the league, I do think they'll be able to come up with a timely takeaway or two like they've done in every game this season, maybe a couple sacks. And I just think the Vikings ultimately, with that home field advantage at US Bank Stadium, that's really important in tight games like these. I think they win 30-27 on a late Will Reichard field goal.
I like it. Will, you just said you're picking them to win until you're given a reason not to. Tony, so far, for those who have been keeping track, have essentially been doing the opposite, picking them to lose until they actually lose, and then he'll start picking wins. Tony, are we keeping up that streak this week?
Yeah, I'm typically not a very superstitious person, but I've picked them to lose every single week this season. So I thought might as well just keep the streak going and bring them some good luck maybe, and hopefully they can keep their record undefeated. But I was telling Jonathan earlier before we started recording that I would say that this week is probably the least confident I've been in the Vikings since maybe week 2 against the 49ers. The Lions just have looked really good. I think they're starting – David Montgomery looks like arguably the best running back in the NFL this season, and their offense is just really starting to roll, I think, and they're starting to figure out how they want to use Montgomery and Gibbs. They did that last year too, but that's one of the best duos in the NFL, and the Vikings defense has shown the ability to stop anyone they face this year, obviously, but I think will be their toughest test, because when they played San Francisco, they didn't have McCaffrey, obviously, and I think this is the best offense that they've faced this year. And, well, the Vikings, I think, have proven that they are serious contenders in the NFC and have just as good as an argument as anyone to be the best team in the NFC. I think they regressed to the mean a little bit this week, and the things that Will said, the extra week to prepare does play in the Vikings' favor. This game being at home plays in the Vikings' favor, but it's just hard to win this many games in a row in the NFL. And I think for that reason, if I was forced to pick, which I am doing now, I would take the Lions in this game.
See, you're going to be outpicked 2-1 here on this one, Tony. While I do agree with you, this is the best offense they will have played this season. I think I'm picking the Vikings here. The bye week does help me pick that. Also, the fact that Lions defense will have to figure out life without Aiden Hutchinson. And I think that'll have a big impact on how this defense plays against Minnesota's Vikings offense. The bye week probably gave Kevin O'Connell and Sam Darnold a little bit of a reset after 6 bad quarters of play, you could say. I'm confident that can be reset. We've seen Kevin O'Connell work miracles with that quarterback position, especially last year. So I have faith that Kevin O'Connell can keep doing it, and that Sam Darnold will come out and look like earlier season Sam Darnold rather than the guy we saw the last 6 quarters. I'm picking a very similar score to Will. Just a 1 point difference. A Vikings 30-28 win with, once again, Will Reichard. Hold your breaths, Viking fans. Kicking a late game-winning field goal. Will, before we move on with more of our discussion, what did Nolan and Joe pick for their predictions?
Yeah, well, Tony didn't say his score. He said
Oh yeah.
Lions 27, Vikings 20. Let's
Okay.
just get that out there. Also, I would say that there is a running back in Baltimore that might dispute the David Montgomery as the best in the league claim this year, but he has been very good, to be clear. Nolan went with Vikings 27, Lions 21. Talking about some of the same things that we have, and go read all of our descriptions of our picks on Vikings on SI. And Joe, unsurprisingly, has the largest margin of victory of any of our picks. He's got Vikings 38, Lions 23. Commenting on how Detroit is losing 38% of its pressures on the season with no Aiden Hutchinson, which is a big deal. No explanation from him for why the Vikings are going to score 38 points, but hey, I like it. Sam Darnold, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. It looks like Aaron Jones is going to play in this game. I don't think they score quite that many points. I mean, Jonathan and I both said 30, so we clearly see them being able to put up some points on this defense that does not have its best player.
Yeah, and this is a very much different defense than the Vikings saw 2 weeks ago against the Jets, and we know how good that Jets defense is. Let me ask you guys this. Will, you've referenced it a couple times. It looks like Aaron Jones is going to play, or going to be able to play this weekend, coming off that injury. With a game coming up on Thursday, and still very early on in the season, would you risk Aaron Jones? Because we know he had the injury problems last year, and that hampered him, and is probably one of the reasons why Green Bay moved on from him, despite him clearly showing he's still got it at 30 years old as a running back in this league. Would you risk him, or would you just, now that you have Cam Akers in the building, Cam Akers and Ty Chandler, would you go with that, or is this a smart play here by Kevin O'Connell to bring Aaron Jones in for a massive game up on this Sunday? Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know for sure if Jones is going to play yet. He's listed as questionable along with 4 other guys, including TJ Hawkinson, Dalton Reisner, who are still on IR working their way back. Ian Rappaport of NFL Network reported this morning that Jones is likely to play. He practiced on Thursday and Friday. I understand the point of, they have 2 games in 5 days, and Jones is 29. He's dealt with injuries before. But if he's ready to go for this game and he feels okay, you play him because you need him, I think. He's a really important part of your offense. This is a huge game with a lot of things on the line in the division. Kevin O'Connell was even asked this today in his final press conference, like, does that Rams game factor into the decision? And he said maybe it does post-game with how we approach that next week. But as far as this game, they're only thinking about Sunday right now. And I suppose that's more of a coach speak line. Like, I'm sure they're thinking about the following Thursday as well. But for the most part, they are locked in on this game, what they need to do to win this game. And if someone like Aaron Jones warms up on Sunday and feels good enough to go, I think he plays. I do also think that we're not likely to see 25-ish touches from Jones like we did in the Texans game and in the Packers game. I think the addition of Cam Akers gives the Vikings the luxury of mixing in Ty Chandler, mixing in Cam Akers, and trying to keep Jones fresh a little bit. But he'll still be the number one guy if he's able to play on Sunday. And we've all seen this year how important he is to the Vikings offense.
Tony, do you think it's smart to risk it this early, bringing Aaron Jones back, knowing that there's still so much of the season left to play?
Yeah, I could see the argument for both sides, and I think the only people that know what the right move is Aaron Jones and the Vikings training staff. And I haven't seen the injury specifics, and I'm not in that training room, so I don't know that. But I could see the argument for both sides. I think this is a massive game and arguably the biggest game of the year, and you want to go out there and make a statement and prove that you're in a different class in your own division and you're in a different class in the NFC. And I think Aaron Jones will have the adrenaline to play in a game like this. And as a veteran in the NFL, he's probably done it a dozen times, and he's going to do it a dozen more times. And everyone in football plays hurt at some point, and so if he's not 100%, he's still going to be. He's a veteran player, and he knows which spots he needs to be in, and he can help the Vikings in some certain situations. So, I think it's a good thing that he is playing in this game. If I was the Vikings coaching staff or training staff, I think it's a okay risk to take in a type of matchup like this. But I also could see the argument of playing it safer.
What what impact does Blake Cashman's absence have on this defense? We've seen he's been excellent for the Vikings this season, earning praise each and every week. How big of a problem will that be that he's not involved against the best offense that this team will play so far this season, Will?
Yeah, it's definitely a big loss. I mean, Cashman was unbelievable in that week 2 game against the 49ers. He's been really good all year. Good run defender, good coverage player, good instincts. The green dot, he's a smart guy. He's a good communicator. Really has just fit in well in the middle as kind of the hub of communication for this Brian Flores defense. I will say, while it's a tough loss, the Vikings can survive it. I think more than maybe some other teams would be able to with a player of Cashman's caliber. Ivan Pace Jr., he missed a couple games earlier this year, but he's been healthy for a bit now. He's going to be, like he was for much of last season down the stretch, the green dot guy without Cashman. He's going to be basically an every down player. Pace is super fun to watch. He flies around. He's a heat-seeking missile. But this is a big test for him and how he can hold up on a down-to-down basis against this punishing running game of the Lions, their offensive line, which might be the league's best, and then how he handles it in coverage as well against Jared Goff and a passing game that's really been cooking. And then additionally, Kamu Grugier-Hill, who played a good amount of snaps in the 2 games Pace missed, he'll be back out there in a sizable role. And he's already had 2 interceptions this season. So the Vikings feel pretty good about their depth there with Kamu and all the football that he's played in the NFL.
Yeah, this is a huge test, Tony, for this defense. We've seen this Detroit Lions offense put up 40 plus points in each of their last 2 games, just wrecking the Dallas Cowboys last week with trick play after trick play, trying to get an offensive lineman, it seemed, to score a touchdown at certain points in that game, just sending Mike Zimmer's defense to the woodshed last week. What are your expectations for how this defense, with a week off, getting a little bit healthier, getting a little bit more well-rested, what are your expectations for how this defense stacks up against this Lions offense that has weapons coming out of the gills?
Yeah, I think Brian Flores has shown that he can prepare against any offense in the NFL, and he knows this Vikings defense's strengths obviously better than anyone, and they will be tested, especially without Blake Cashman, but the Vikings have had time to prepare for that scenario now with the extra week, and I think Detroit certainly presents interesting matchups with Montgomery, and my love for him as RB1 in the league might be a little bit because he's on my fantasy team, but still a very good running back, and they just can hit you with weapons all over the field, and we've seen that for a couple years now with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, and now even Jamison Williams as their second receiver, who's had probably the best start to a season in his young NFL career. So I think it's going to be limiting the big plays will be a big emphasis in this game because Detroit is always, I think, going to get theirs, so to speak, that they're going to be able to move the ball. But those big plays that can completely flip the momentum of a game, like if they hit Jamison Williams for like a 60-yard touchdown or Jahmyr Gibbs breaks a long run, I think that is going to kind of be what could be the difference in this game. And if the Vikings are able to limit those, I think they should have no issue being in this game till the very end.
Another story that, Will, you wrote about earlier today on the website, a couple of them that kind of just morph into one story. Justin Jefferson has had a lot of success against the Detroit Lions, averaging 182.5 yards per game in a number of games against them, I believe. And he has been incredible against them lately. But that also comes with the aspect that the officiating crew, Clayton Martin and his crew this season, have called 6 total penalties for defensive pass interference. And we already heard Lions head coach Dan Campbell say the key to slowing Justin Jefferson down is getting hands on him, being physical with him. How much is this going to play into how this game is plays out on Sunday. The physical nature that we would assume Detroit's cornerbacks are going to play on Justin Jefferson. We've seen them do it in the past. And the fact that this officiating crew really kind of keeps their whistle to the side in those aspects.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small sample size with the officiating crews this season in 5 games, but certainly not a ton of those DPI calls, defensive holding, illegal contact from Clay Martin and this crew, which is something to watch. You can be sure that Kevin O'Connell will be going up to Clay Martin before the game and reminding him to keep an eye on number 18 at all times, and that this Lions team is going to be grabby. And Terrion Arnold, their rookie out of Alabama, their first-round pick, leads all cornerbacks in penalties called against him this season. He's had 8 of them. He's second in all players in penalties called, behind only Laramie Tunzel, who Vikings fans will remember committing about half of his 11 penalties in Week 3 at US Bank
on one
Stadium.
drive.
Yeah, on one drive, basically. Carlton Davis is second or tied for the lead in the league with 5 defensive pass interferences called against him. He's dealing with a quad injury, so he might not play. And if that's the case, you're talking about it's Terrion Arnold, it's Mick Robertson is their slot corner, and then their other outside corner would be some backup who's played fewer than 50 snaps this year. It could be another rookie, Ennis Rakestraw. It could be Kendall Vilder. I think there's one other guy who's seen the field a little bit this year. But, yeah, Justin Jefferson, the 182 yards a game, that's what he's done at Ford Field in his career. It's 134 total in 8 games against the Lions, which is still ridiculous. It's the most yards anybody's ever had in at least an 8-game sample size against another opponent in NFL history. And that includes a 14-yard game that he had in 2022 in Minneapolis, where the Lions committed 8 penalties of the DPI or defensive holding or illegal contact variety. So they're going to be doing whatever they can to try to keep Jefferson from going for his usual 150-plus yards against them. That could include some grabbing, but you know the thing is, like, it kind of makes sense if you're the Lions to try to really be physical, because maybe they call it here and there, but they're not going to call it every play.
Yeah.
And the alternative is, if you're not physical, Jefferson's going to torch you with his routes, and he's going to be open all the time. So I think we'll see a lot of that. I mean, specifically if it's Arnold, who's been the grabbiest corner in the league this year, it's definitely something to keep an eye on in this game, how they cover Jefferson, how physical they are with him. And also, I think there could be some opportunities for Jordan Addison in this game, whether or not Carlton Davis plays, just given how much attention they're inevitably going to be putting on number 18.
Tony, how comfortable are you with Sam Darnold possibly resetting things over the bye week after a rough stretch of games going in, or rough stretch of quarters specifically going in to that bye week? How comfortable are you with Sam Darnold maybe returning to the first couple games of form?
Yeah, for all the things that Will has mentioned about the questions on this Lions defense, obviously Aiden Hutchinson out, and there's still a lot of questions in their kind of new look secondary compared to last year. I think this is a good chance for him to get back on that path that he had of being one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL this season, after the Jets, who have one of the best pass defenses in the NFL, if not the best. So I think it's a good opportunity for him to get some confidence back in this game. And the more I talk about it, I could see this game being a little more high scoring than I originally predicted. But I think there's plenty of opportunities for this Vikings offense to put up a lot of points in this game. And I think it's a good chance for Darnold and Jefferson to have another big game against this Lions defense.
I will say, like, as we discussed, Jonathan and I, in our 5 matchups video on the channel that everyone should go watch if they haven't. This Lions defense, just because they don't have Hutchinson, they're not suddenly some unit that you're just going to be able to, rack up points with ease against. They're certainly less dangerous than they would be if they had the defensive player of the year favorite out there. But their safeties, Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch, and then their defensive tackles with Aleem McNeil, Levi Onwuzurike, and DJ Reader. Those are all very good football players who the Vikings have to be aware of. But edge rusher, corner, definitely more exploitable spots that the Vikings can try to take advantage of as Sam Darnold looks to have a bounce-back game.
Let me close out with this question for you guys. 5-0 Vikings taking on the 4-1 Lions. 5-0 Chiefs taking on, I believe, the 3-2 49ers. I believe that's
I think they're 3-3.
3-3? Okay. Who stays undefeated longer between those two final teams that are undefeated so far this season? They both have very tough matchups for very different reasons. Will, you go first, then Tony.
I'll say the Vikings because I think the 49ers beat the Chiefs this weekend. And as we've discussed, I'm picking a Vikings win this weekend. So I think after this weekend, the Vikings are the only 6-0 team in the league. I just think as good as the Chiefs have been at finding ways to win, they haven't really fully clicked or thrived this year with some of their injuries at the receiver position. And I just think the 49ers, despite being 3-3 and having the loss to the Vikings, a weird loss to the Cardinals, and then one other one in there that I'm forgetting, that's a very, very good team. And I think that they get it done against the Chiefs this week.
Tony?
Yeah, I am, I guess, kind of talking out both sides of my mouth here, but
that's okay.
I think, honestly, the Chiefs have looked more vulnerable than the Vikings this year. It's hard to doubt Patrick Mahomes and a team that always finds themselves in the Super Bowl discussion, but they have, I think, almost more questions than the Vikings. Their wide receiver position has a lot of unknowns, a lot of injuries to the running back position, and like Will said, they haven't really clicked all year, and we've seen the Vikings play a really good game for 60 minutes, and we know how tough they are to beat when they do that. So I think I kind of agree with Will. I think the Chiefs have a better chance of losing this week than the Vikings, so I'll say the Vikings stay undefeated longer as well.
The Vikings get through this week and they win. How much longer do they stay undefeated considering their schedule ahead of them? You've got the Rams, you got a couple easy games against the AFC Souths, Colts, Jaguars, Titans, you got the Bears. How long can this team stay undefeated if they can get through the Detroit Lions?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna sound like Joe Nelson here, but if they win this game, like, it's hard to find their first loss on paper for a while. It is hard to win over and over and over in this league. I don't think that they're gonna wind up at 12-0 or something like that. I think they'll slip up somewhere. I don't know necessarily where that's gonna be because the Rams, I think, have one win this year, and the AFC South kind of stinks. So I'm not sure. They could absolutely lose this game on Sunday. It's a 1.5 point spread. I'm not overly confident that they're going to win, but if they do win, they could be 10-0. It's possible. I wouldn't say it's likely, but it's certainly possible given how good their defense has been and how that gives you a chance to take control of games every week.
Tony?
Yeah, I think the NFL has shown us time after time that it is kind of any given Sunday, and there's always a game that kind of comes out of nowhere that you're like, well, I didn't think that was going to happen. So, games like I feel like if they win this week, the next four on paper looks like they should win, with the Rams on the road, Colts at home, Jaguars and Titans on the road. But if they win this one, I think they're just, if I had to guess, I think they'd lose one of those. I don't know which one, but it is the NFL, and I think the odds of them losing one of those are pretty, not high, I should say, but I just could see that happening. It's hard to pick which one, but like the Jaguars on the road, on just looking at it right now, and even the Rams on the road, I could see them struggling.
I would say Rams we shouldn't overlook because of their current record. I mean, it's still McVay, it's still Stafford. It does sound like they'll have Cooper Kupp back potentially this week, but most likely for that Thursday game. You're going on the road to different time zone, short week. I know it's not exactly a home field advantage for the Rams, but that one could be a loss potentially as well.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Got a huge game coming up this weekend. Noon kickoff at US Bank Stadium. Will, you'll be there. You'll have the post-game recap right back here on the channel afterwards. Looking forward to that. Minnesota sports fans, make sure to hit subscribe to the channel. It does help us get found, helps the metrics and analytics and algorithm. Pick us up here on YouTube. Also notifies you every time we do post a new video across Minnesota sports here on the Bring Me the Sports YouTube channel. Boys, we'll talk to you later this weekend with more sports to come and more topics to discuss. I'll talk to you then, in Minnesota sports fans, right back here on the channel, coming up Sunday afternoon with Will's recap of whatever happens at US Bank Stadium. We'll talk to you then.